Welcome to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast, where we dive into inspiring stories, thrilling adventures, and expert insights from leaders and legends across the outdoor adventure community. Whether you're an avid hiker, passionate camper, or adventure traveler, each episode brings you up close and personal with guests who've lived it, explored it, and made it their mission to share their experiences with you. Let's get after it. As president of Formidable Media, Scott helps a select group of clients build their brands globally through tailored marketing services, public relations, custom content, paid media, and social support. As Senior VP at Green Threads DPP, Scott also leads efforts around the EU's upcoming Digital Product Passport legislation, guiding companies through compliance and integration. His specialties include textiles, sustainable materials, performance fabrics, and the outdoor industry. Welcome back to the show, Scott.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I was looking back. I thought you had been on before, but I guess this is your first time on the show.
I think I was on once pre-pandemic. I think it was shortly after I started Formidable Media. We may have run into each other at an OWAA, Outdoor Writers Association of America meeting.
Yeah.
Which I think I was still new to Formidable, and I think you were still reasonably new to the podcast.
Okay. Maybe it's one of those some of those older episodes are, another hard drive and
Fair enough. Yeah. It has been a little while either way.
Yeah. I'll look that up though so I can mention it in the show notes and link to it.
Great.
That way people measure us on what we said then and what we said now.
Our opinions have changed, and I'm sure they have.
I'm sure they have. So let's kick things off with your origin story. How did your time in the trenches of bike shops lead to a career shaping public image of some of these most iconic outdoor brands?
Great question. Yeah. So, the short version of the long story is, growing up in the 70s, you're just outdoorsy by default. You get up in the morning, you go outside, and that's kind of where
when the streetlights come on.
Exactly right. Yeah. So, mom and dad supplied the bike, the skateboard, and the rest of it was kind of up to you. So, grew up just being outdoors. And I guess when it really started getting more organized was, I had a bunch of friends growing up who got into skiing, and then, I kind of followed suit and got into that as well, and got into mountain biking in college. And, when I graduated, I was, fairly regular cyclist and had a lot of interest in that. So I got a job in a bike shop, for what was going to be a year, just to learn everything there was to learn and just be around bike people and do that. That was of interest to me. But, 8 years later, I'm still in bike and ski shops. And a buddy of mine at the time, Ben Hewitt, he was the East Coast editor for Skiing Magazine when that was still in publication. And I wound up tagging along with him to cover the various resorts all over New England. I was living in Vermont at the time. And, just after a bunch of years at Onion River Sports, now Onion River Outdoors in Vermont, in Montpelier, Vermont, I was ready for something different. So I hit up Ben. He's heavily invested and involved in the industry, and he connected me with his buddy Drew Simmons at Pale Morning Media, and I wound up being employee number one at Pale Morning.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, worked there for 6 years and enjoyed the work and enjoyed the industry, and it all suited me pretty well. So
yeah, that worked out pretty good. Yeah, and now you're on to another venture, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Sure.
You've worked with some great brands too, Kelty, Sierra Designs, Ultimate Direction. What were some of your favorite product stories or campaigns that you brought to life? That was back in the early days too. Some new stuff. It was all new hitting the market, really.
That's true. I was lucky to be at American Recreation Products. I was in-house PR there, and that was the parent company for Kelty, Sierra Designs, and Ultimate Direction. But I was lucky to be there at a pretty good moment. Sierra Designs had gotten new management, new direction, so they were developing a lot of new and different tents and sleeping bags. And as I'm sure you know, anything in outdoor that's new and different, definitely, probably most industries really, tends to get a lot of media attention. So we had a lot of great stuff to talk about there. Ultimate Direction, Buzz Burrell had taken over that brand and was doing some really unique stuff with endurance athletes and hydration. So that was really fun to work with that. And then Kelty was sort of shifting gears away from I guess this was going on for a while, but from a core backpacking brand to more of a general camping brand. And they had a lot of really cool stuff going on there too. This all coincided with a moment in time where outdoor publishing was still very healthy. And we'd go to trade shows and have 50 plus meetings with journalists, and that just doesn't really
For
happen
four
so much
days. I mean,
more.
nonstop. Yeah.
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 So you combine all these things, great products, new product managers, interesting stories, and a media that is looking for these types of stories. And it was just a fantastic time to be involved. We got awards, we drove sales, and it was just a really fun time to be in the industry.
It was a great time. Yeah. I was working with Montbell and some other young brands then too. It was fantastic. It was, pioneering, so to speak, but we didn't know we were pioneering. We were just doing what we do.
That's right. Just trying to
It's
get
pretty
outside and
cool.
have a good time.
That's right. And Formidable Media is your latest chapter. What inspired you to co-found your own firm, and what makes your approach different from the traditional PR?
Well, let's see. So, after American Rec, I worked at a small agency and a larger agency and, was ready to kind of do something bigger, something more, have more agency over my work-life balance, who I was working with and what I was doing. And my buddy Aaron Bible, who is probably a familiar name to some of the folks listening to your
Hmm.
podcast, he and I kind of put our heads together and came up with the concept for Formidable Media. I had been friends with the team at Allied Feather and Down for a number of years. So when we mentioned our thoughts around forming an agency to them, they thought that was a great idea and they decided
Hmm.
they would get on board with us. And the rest is history, so to speak. So
Cool.
it was a pretty organic progression. So it all
Hmm.
worked out really well.
So they were your first brand. How many brands do you have now?
Currently working full time with 4 clients,
Okay.
and that list has, expanded and
Sure.
contracted
Yeah.
from that number. But yeah, 3 to 5 clients at any given time is my sweet spot.
That's a sweet spot. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. And you've been on both the brand and agency side of outdoor PR. How does that dual perspective shape how you work with people?
Well, it's great having both of those experiences. Being in-house was eye-opening for me. When I was at an agency, you would just get the workbook for the season and start planning your stories and pitches and understanding the product from there. But being in-house, you really get a solid feel for the product development journey from
Mm.
concept to finished product. And you see how that dovetails in with sales and marketing and everything else that happens in-house. So it was a fantastic education. It gave me a great understanding of, some of the pain points that brands go through when bringing product to market, a better understanding on how the sales cycles work and how best to support a sales team with communication and just how broader marketing works, how all these pieces of the puzzle kind of come together. So that was fantastic experience. Working in-house, on the other hand, is you meet a lot of very talented public relations professionals. You meet people who bring ideas to the table that maybe you wouldn't have come up with on your own. So it's a great way to get a variety of perspectives and a great way to sort of develop your own styles. You pull
Right.
those things that you really like, you avoid those things that maybe you don't so much, and really develop your own sort of communication style and network of contacts.
You get an opportunity too to see other things that people do that may not have worked out so well or did work out really well. And you know not only what not to do because of your own experience, but you get to learn from others too, right? Because we all have failures and wins, and you always try to reduce the failures and leverage the wins. So
True enough.
that's a good opportunity. Yeah.
Agreed.
What do you think most outdoor brands get wrong when it comes to storytelling or media outreach these days?
I think that potentially some brands kind of get married to an outcome. They have a product that they think is great. I guess it's, they kind of get caught up in their own ideas on how things should be, which
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily match up with the reality on the ground. What one brand may see as their halo product and this thing's going to sell like gangbusters and it's got a fantastic story behind it could potentially fall flat with media. It may not
Mhm.
have that hook that journalists are looking for. So I think that's probably number one is just expectations around media coverage for something that may not resonate well with
Mhm.
journalists.
What you thought was going to be hot kind of flopped, and something else is hot. So you got to pivot.
True enough.
Yeah, be quick on your feet. Yeah.
That's right.
But you've seen the outdoor media landscape evolve over the years from print to podcast, social first content. What do you think's next? Is there anything on the horizon that's coming?
What I see increasingly is, and this is actually a very broad question. I mean, just the evolution of
Right.
publishing journalism has changed in the, 20 years that I've been doing this dramatically. There just aren't as many people writing for magazines. I mean, online has certainly, online publications have certainly changed the print landscape. I think that consumers of media are almost expectant to get things for free when they're online, as opposed to buying a magazine or paying for a magazine subscription. So I think the internet has trained people that they can get something for nothing. And really
Hmm.
what that winds up meaning is it's less income for these publications, through subscriptions. So, these publications have had to get smart about how to evolve and stay profitable. And that has resulted in a lot of titles disappearing, a lot of publications going strictly online to manage the costs of actually publishing a print publication. So there's been a lot of evolution there. I think that, well, we see podcasts really, still continuing to kind of become a bigger and more important piece of the publishing puzzle. Obviously, digital is still pretty huge. Social media has had a fairly sizable impact on all of that. What's next is a great question. I know that from my side of things, when I send out a pitch feels like every year I get more and more replies asking about paid opportunities. Do you have budget to buy an ad? Do you
Huh.
have for advertorials, things like that? So I think that it's a struggle for these publications to bring revenue in when, like I said, A, people are expecting to get it for free, and B, just the advertising budget dollars are all over the place now. It's not just buying
Hmm.
an ad in a magazine. It's you have to pay your e-com team. You have to, pay for promotion on social media. You have to pay more money just to get your brand name out there. So I think paid is going to become an increasingly large part of successful communications programs moving forward.
Yeah, it almost seems like it has to because all of us out here that do this on this side of the mic, fence, whatever you want to call it, there's a monetary situation for us as well, right? So everybody needs some income coming in or some revenue coming in, whether it's a podcast or a magazine. And
Agreed.
it's just going to get spread out over this. This is just going to explode with, multiple podcasts, multiple magazines. Magazines are all online. The digital is going to probably drive the bus, huh?
Agreed. I agree fully there. And you're absolutely right in that we do what we do because we love it. We love the
Right.
outdoors. It's a lifestyle that has turned into a career for us. But let's not kid ourselves. We're doing it for a paycheck.
At the end of the day, we got to buy groceries.
Exactly right. And
Yeah.
we need to make money somehow. And we're, like I say, we're lucky enough to be an industry that we enjoy being in and working in and contributing to.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still need that paycheck at the end of the day. So, and everybody does. So how do you balance these things, this rapidly changing environment and the need to earn a living? So,
Yeah.
uh, you kind of have to be quick on your feet sometimes.
Yep. Got to be nimble. Yep. So working with purpose-driven brands is a big part of the industry now. How do you help them align their message with authenticity in this ever-changing media market and so many places to put it?
That's another thing that's changing quickly. What I really encourage brands to do, and let me back that up a second. I'm sorry, but you probably remember, I couldn't even guess how many years ago it was now off the top of my head, probably 8, 10, 12 years ago, where like the creating greener products was a big thing. I remember Outdoor Retailer, I think it was Backpacker Magazine that had a contest who could create the most environmentally friendly sleeping bag. And everyone dove in on that. Everyone dove in on the
Mhm.
sustainability story. Shortly thereafter, there was more and more talk about greenwashing and how just because a brand says something sustainable doesn't necessarily make it so. So I think we're seeing a lot of backlash to that. And I've heard stories of brands pulling their sustainability messaging off of hang tags. I've heard about sustainability manager positions kind of going away. So brands are being very careful about how they talk about their sustainability, especially in an environment where it's kind of expected at this point
Right.
for a lot of buyers. And so how do you balance all that? So what I recommend to brands is that if you are going to go that route, you have to go all in on it. You can't just have, like 30% recycled content in a couple of pieces and call yourself a sustainable brand. You need
Right.
to go all in on that. And you need to have the data to back it up.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
whether that's auditing your supply chain, life cycle analyses, things like that, you have to have that, on hand. It can't just be take my word for it anymore. It has to be like,
Right.
no, we ran a study and here are the numbers. So I think brands, especially, well, I work with a lot of supply side brands now. I think the consumer facing brands that they're working with demand
Mm-hmm.
accountability and transparency before they will go and take a step out and say something is recycled, recyclable, sustainable, whatever that messaging might be.
Yeah.
So to be authentic, do your homework, evaluate your supply chain, understand your materials better, know where they're coming from, take end of life considerations into
Mm.
account. So, you know, and I think that speaks for itself. You don't have to have, splashed across your homepage, we're a sustainable brand.
Right.
But when people research your products and they look at the materials list or in the hang tags on your products, if you can list, natural fiber or recycled content or instructions for, how to recycle something, I think that gets the message across in a really authentic way that's going to resonate more and more in the future.
Yeah, and I think all consumers are getting more educated and more up to speed on all those things as well. So they'll call you on it if it's not right. And they'll go read your hang tag and then they'll go do the research on whatever that is. There's some pretty savvy folks out there that want to know all that stuff, right?
They do, and I actually have some really solid experience here too. I work with, as I mentioned, Allied Feather and Down. We're still working together. Allied was a pioneer years ago with supply chain transparency in the down
Mm-hmm.
industry. They helped to create the responsible down standard. And, again, another very long story, very short. Basically, all the down that they sourced would come with a lot number corresponding to the farm or the region where that down came from, and all the farms within that region would be audited to make sure that they are compliant with standards for animal welfare and what have you. And that was great. That allowed brands to put an RDS tag on their apparel, on their jacket, their sleeping bag, whatever contains down. But Ally took it a step further. They took those lot numbers and created Track My Down.
Right, I remember that. They were
So
on the show a while back talking about that too.
yeah,
That
and
was cool.
it was cool, and it still is. It's
Yeah,
still a highly relevant program for them. And, they figured, oh, we've already got the lot numbers. We already have all this
yeah,
information. Let's just
yeah.
make it available to the customer. This could be a cool little add-on,
Right,
put on
right.
a hang tag, and, maybe some people will visit it, but, it doesn't cost us a whole lot more to further market our transparency. What they found, they completely blew their expectations out of the water. People were visiting multiple times. People were spending minutes instead of seconds on their website.
Mm.
They really wanted to know what
Yeah.
was in the down jacket that
Hmm.
they were either considering buying or had already bought. So it just underscores this interest in knowing more about what it is that you're
Hmm.
buying.
Hmm.
And I think that, beyond that, I think that extends to probably most products and most materials. I think that's especially relevant in the outdoor space. I think our
I was just gonna say
outdoorsy,
that. Yeah, they're
yeah,
more environmentally conscious and they want to make sure they're doing the right thing to protect the planet because we're all out there using the outside, right? So yeah, yeah.
that's exactly right. So I think that it was, a combination of things, not the least of which being that we're presenting this to a consumer base that is vested in sustainability.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So let's see. Let's go. I'm going to bounce around here a little bit.
Sure.
Let's geek out for a second. Is there any all-time favorite piece of gear you've helped launch or promote? Do you have one thing that's just like, that was really fun?
It's funny. I have got a number of things that were pretty cool to be a part of. As far as launching goes, I think that, well, I was at Sierra Designs, to kind of reflect some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, some of the cool things that were going on. Sierra
Mhm.
Designs sourced their down from Allied, which is how I initially met the team over at Allied. But Allied had created the world's first hydrophobic down insulation, and Sear Designs was the first brand to launch it, and I was lucky enough to be doing the PR at that time, and that story completely took off.
Wow.
And it didn't stop there. A lot of other down suppliers kind of jumped on board, and it evolved from, a C8 to a C6 fluorinated chemistry down to a C0 chemistry, and Allied did their research on it. I mean, it's if you probably remember, and you can probably still see it too if you go to some of these outdoor trade shows where there's a display with
Yeah,
down
I remember that. Yeah.
floating on top of water. And that,
Right, right.
it occurred to all of us at some point that if your down is in contact with that much water, you've got bigger problems than your down wetting out, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And that realization sort of spurred more research into, well, what is actually happening inside of a down chamber? And it's not getting in contact with with water droplets, with condensed water. It's mostly water vapor. And a lot of that's coming from inside of the jacket and then the humidity from the outside of the jacket. So Allied partnered up with Fused Technologies and created Expedry, which is the next generation of down that performs well in wetter environments. And basically what Expedry is, it's a gold microparticle that is permanently bonded to the down. In any one jacket, there's probably 2 grains of salt worth of actual gold, so it doesn't take a
Well,
lot.
I think I remember them telling me about that.
Yeah, it's a chemical-free finish, and it handles moisture differently. So,
Mm.
without going too far into the chemistry behind it, the gold particles actually keep water vapor in an excited state, so it doesn't condense into a water droplet, which
Mm.
allows it to evaporate more effectively. So, when your jacket does get wet, it dries faster, and it does not allow water to condense inside your jacket or sleeping bag the same way that traditional hydrophobic down would. So
Hmm,
you get
hmm.
enough water vapor. The down might not be getting wet, but there's water droplets trapped within the down jacket, and that doesn't help.
Right, right. Hey, friends, quick break here. If you're a destination marketing leader and your region is packed with amazing outdoor adventures, I want to hear from you. Let's get you on the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast to share those stories with our audience. Hit me up at rick@ricksays.com and I'll send you all the deets. Let's inspire more folks to explore the wild side of your destination. But now, let's get back to the show. And you've got some changes to brands that folks need to know about that we wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, so one of the other projects that I'm working on is the brand is called Green Threads DPP. It's a UK-based brand founded in part by a friend of mine, Ross Alexander, who I met in my days at Kelty. He's based in the UK and he did a lot of distribution for Kelty and some other brands, and we've been in touch ever since. So he was savvy to some changing laws in the EU. So
Mm.
basically, the EU launched what's called the EU Green Deal a few years back. And what that is intended to do is to make the European economy carbon neutral by 2050.
Wow.
So, and it's a sprawling piece of legislation. So there's a lot to this. We are primarily focused on helping to create what they're calling a digital product passport. What this is sort of like the next level of supply chain transparency. So starting in 2027, most products, and there's a staged timeline, we're focused on 2027 specifically because that's when these regulations come online for textiles and apparel and things like
Okay.
that. That's kind of be our specialty. So Ross brought me on board a little better than a year ago now, and we're just trying to, sell our services really is what it amounts to. And Europe is aware of this. They know this stuff is
Mhm.
coming. Pitching these stories around to European publications. I get a lot of emails back like we've covered this a dozen different
Oh,
ways.
wow, really? So they've already been talking about it for a while. Huh.
So the EU is up on it.
Uh-huh.
Here in the US, the brands that I've talked to are completely unaware. A lot of them, not all of them. Some of them,
Hmm.
this is happening, but a lot of brands don't even realize that this is happening.
Wow.
So we're trying to help brands with compliance. And just to break it down a little bit further for you, so this is all digital product passports. And I know this gets a little bit confusing. I'm happy to chat with anybody offline and a little bit more depth on it if you got
I'll
specific.
put your contact info in the show notes so they can follow up.
Please, that would be great. But digital product passports fall under a category called the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. So basically, what that ESPR is going to do is going to set, and we're going to find out later this year exactly what it all is. We still don't know exactly what's going to be required. But basically,
They're
it's
probably still figuring it out as they go too, I'll bet.
yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of this, figured out, but of course there's time for feedback, public
Yeah,
feedback
sure. You
for
put
it
it
to
out to public and all of a
finalize.
sudden, oh, we missed that. Oh, we got to change this. You know how that goes.
Exactly right. So by end of this year, we should know exactly what is going to be required. We should
Hmm.
know some of the penalties that will be associated with non-compliance and things like that. So we're still waiting to get the full picture. But basically, the ESPR regulation is going to, help brands, or it's designed to have brands become more environmentally friendly by improving product durability, reusability, repairability,
That's
making
smart.
products more energy and resource efficient,
Wow.
addressing the presence of substance that would inhibit circularity, increasing recycled content, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of
I
energy
bet there's a
involved in
bunch.
that.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So what the digital product passport is going to do, and that's what we're kind of specializing in, that's going to be the way for people to see all of the stuff that, that is in their jacket, all the compliance stuff that they have done. So
Mm-hmm.
it's going to require factory audits and supply chain audits. So information like water usage to produce this garment, distance it has
Hmm.
traveled
Hmm.
before it got to, whichever country it's being sold in, power usage, carbon footprint, recycled content, end of life considerations. Is it recyclable? Things like that. So it's really going to eliminate greenwashing. A lot of the issues we talked about previously about how sustainability and authenticity has been sort of incumbent upon the brand to do in the trust that's built up in that brand.
Yeah,
Now there's
right.
not going to be any room for mistake.
Mm.
You're going to have an audited supply chain, and all the numbers, facts, and figures in there are going to be, backed up by these studies and these audits. And it's all going to be available in a QR code
Mm.
to whomever is buying the product or
Hmm.
potentially
Hmm.
recycling the product or what have you. So it's going to be a very transparent or an avenue to true transparency into
Hmm.
into apparel and a number of other products.
That's amazing. So they must be already started on that with the factories and the suppliers, right? I mean, they got to be working now.
Some brands are. Yeah, some
Yeah.
brands are ahead of the game. We're working, Allied is a client of ours. We're currently conducting, their factory audits so that their partner brands can access this information. So when they need to be compliant, it's like, well, here's all the information you need on the sustainability of the down that's going into your product. But and some brands already have versions of this. I mean, I just saw the other day, I bought a shirt and it's got a QR code in it. It's not, you know, Green Deal, ESPR, DPP compliant as far as what's going to be
Hmm.
required by the
Hmm.
EU, but it does give you a snapshot into what's behind what you're buying. The
Yeah,
materials
right.
has there's some marketing stuff in there as well, but
Mm.
it's going to be that level of transparency that I think we're going to see more and more in the future. And I mean, all this is great, but brands that aren't compliant, there's going to be a variety of different, potential penalties from, fines of varying size and degree to even barring the ability to sell your products in the EU if you are
Wow.
a
Hmm.
flagrant enough violate of these
Multi-offender.
laws. Yeah,
Wow,
exactly.
that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
What the one thing that strikes me since I've been out of the industry, it was I don't know if it was a challenge when I was in working in the industry, but it just seems like we still make too much stuff.
Hmm.
We have these quotas that we try to hit, and you never, it's always exceeds the sales number. I mean, however, and we have this extra stuff that we try to sell. Part of the challenge is for a brand, you have to sell it off price, so it hurts your margins. I guess they build all that in these days. But the other
Hmm.
thing is, you look at some of these photos of that place down in South America where all this stuff goes to this landfill, and it's just this huge landfill of stuff. And I just wonder if there's anything going on about the quantities. Are we going to try to run out of stuff for a change?
I would love to see that.
Me too.
Because I mean, there's so much to that. And that's a big, broad question, but it's absolutely worth asking and discussing. I mean, it's a very competitive marketplace.
Yeah.
So like the last thing a brand wants to do is
Well,
create a
and
home run.
sorry to interrupt you, but not only competitive for the shelf space, but competitive for your dollars, right? You always want to be, have revenue that is, in the top tier. You want to be the top two brands, top five brands, whatever it is, right? So that's
Mhm.
also driving the bus as well as the revenue number.
Agreed. And so, there's a lot of unknowns when you launch your new product assortment. The last thing you want to do is, a month and a half in, run out of your home run product.
Yep. Yep.
And then on top of that, you don't always know what your home run product is
Yep.
going to be.
Yep.
And, there are resellers who are happy to take stuff that you can't sell at a discount and sell it at a discount. And I think we've done a lot to sort of train the buyer to look for deals and look for things that
The
are off.
consumer for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think but I think a lot of that's changing too. I mean, I keep reading about, the secondhand market and thrift stores and things like that really
Mhm.
kind of growing in popularity, and some of that
Hmm.
I think is fueled by just financial necessity, and some of it is fueled by it's the cool thing to do. Say, oh, I thrifted this new piece.
Yep. And they're jammed full of product. There's one in Bishop where I used to live, and it's just got, I mean, it's bulging at the seams with all the
Mhm.
product they have. It's amazing.
And what's going to drive, I mean, I think until there's a financial incentive for brands not to overproduce, they're going to
Mm.
continue doing that. This
Yeah.
model works. It doesn't
Yep.
work perfectly, but it works. It works well enough.
Yep. That's a good point.
So either, and I see these changes coming either of one of two things. It's either consumer sentiment or it's regulation.
Yep.
And I think those are the two main things that are going to change anything. So, well, I'm a fan of the new regulations in the EU. I think that they are going to encourage brands to make things that are more durable. I think they're going to encourage a secondhand market. I think they're going to encourage, making less stuff to begin with. Durability, repairability, all of this, I think, is going to help decrease the vast amount of stuff that's getting made.
Yeah.
Another thing that I found is interesting in the eco design for sustainable products regulation is, and I think it's even started in 2026. I think it started already. I'll have to double check my notes on that, but it is going to be illegal to destroy unsold product.
Oh, wow.
And I think this applies mostly to fashion brands. I've read stories for years about these big fashion houses. If they don't sell through something, they'll shred it.
Wow.
They don't want to sell it at a discount. And if it doesn't sell at a discount, they don't want it winding
Oh,
up, worn by, maybe people who they don't want to have their brand logo,
right, right, right.
which is
Yeah. That's
it's a
not our
whole
target consumer.
story. No,
Destroy
it's
that.
exactly. So what they would do is
Wow.
just shred or incinerate the stuff before having it wind up,
Oof.
not where they want to see it within the marketplace,
Yeah, yeah.
in the
Hmm.
consumer world. But that's now going to be illegal. So you cannot legally destroy unsold product anymore.
Hmm.
And I think that alone is going to help to curtail the amount of stuff that's being made.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Let's shift gears a little bit. For folks looking to get into the outdoor brand communications or storytelling or sales repping, what advice do you have for them?
Go back to school and get a degree in programming or learn AI, do something else.
That's
Uh,
funny.
but seriously, though, it's outdoor is an interesting animal, and I think that myself included, we used to call it the outdoor industry tax.
That's
I think our industry is probably, some of the smartest, most talented people, well, granted, my experience isn't super broad, but I do
no,
run
that's
a lot
made up of
smart.
some fantastic people. You're right. I mean, I was in it for 20 years and it was A, it was super fun. B, it was challenging because it was a real industry and there was sales challenges and production challenges and all these things that all the other industries are hit. And
Mhm.
wicked smart people to solve it all. So you're right.
Exactly. Yes, I agree with that. And I think that, we get into it because it's a passion. It's a lifestyle that turns into a career.
Yep,
If you
yep.
want to make a bunch of money, get into finance. If you're okay making less than maybe what your ultimate, market value would be. You love to work with like-minded people who like to get outside and get after it and travel and do all this cool stuff. It's a fantastic place to be. So my advice would be, embrace the lifestyle as much as you can because that's probably the best part of being in this industry. And that's not to say you can't make a living doing it. You
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
can. But if money is your motivator,
yeah.
there are other industries that are better suited to your goals.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You can make a good living, but you're right. You're not rolling in the big money unless you're in a top tier executive. And it's a lot of fun too. I mean, that's the thing too. We trade off the financial rewards for the fun rewards because the lifestyle is fantastic. You're right on. What about favorite place in the outdoors that you still get away these days to recharge? Do you have a favorite spot you go to when you just need to blow off some steam or have a beer? Or...
Let's see, anything outside my front door,
I was going
really?
to say you live in a great spot, so
I do. And I found that, the way I get outside is I don't do a ton of big trips anymore. I don't go, fly out to Washington to go backpack around Rainier. I just don't do that anymore. You know, between my career and just, running my own business and just, I mean, honestly, like I just don't have the same
yeah,
ability as the younger version of
that's
myself
right. Can't do it for as many days in a row. if
to
any
get
days in a row.
exactly. So my favorite place to be, I do a lot of gravel biking. That's kind of my go-to thing right now. Gravel biking and
Hmm.
swimming have kind of become my thing, a little bit low, a little bit lower impact. God, I'm sounding old when I talk about this way.
Hey man, it
But,
helps. The good thing is we're getting old. That's the good news.
exactly right. It beats the alternative. That
That's
is for
right. I
sure.
think.
It's so far anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, my favorite place outdoors is just, I've just got an amazing amount of trail just outside my house, whether it's paved bike path, gravel bike path, dirt roads, single track. I mean, I can take my gravel biking, I can do a quick 10-mile loop, on and off paved and gravel path, or I can get a 40-mile gravel ride in that ties a bunch of single track and dirt road and everything into it as well. So that's kind of my favorite thing. I like the convenience of it. If I'm being
Hmm.
honest, I can
Yep.
go anytime. Like I will often, I don't even plan a ride. Like I'm not even planning a ride today, but oh, I got a bunch of work done. I don't have any calls this afternoon. It's gorgeous out. I'm gonna go for a 20-mile ride, 30-mile
Exactly. Yeah.
ride. I'll
Yeah. That's
just get
perfect.
up
Yep.
and out the door. Don't have to pack anything into the car. Don't have to drive to a trailhead. Just go. And then when I'm done, I'm back home and take a shower and dive back into work if need
There you
be.
go. Yep. That's right. Perfect. Yep.
That's pretty good. So I like that. I do like to travel. I'm not sure if I mentioned in this interview, but I told you that my wife Noelle and I were moving to Mexico for at least the winter this year.
That sounds cool.
So I'm really excited and we're going to be on the beach. So I'm excited to get more involved in, snorkeling and diving and paddling and open water swimming. My gravel bike's down there already. I sent my gravel bike down already. So I do plan on continuing to ride, but I'm very excited to just explore, all the outdoor opportunity that the ocean will provide.
Right. 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 It's a whole new world for you. Yeah.
Whole new world for me. Absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Very
And where we
cool.
are, there's a couple of bike shops and dive shops and things like that. So I think it'll be pretty easy to
Perfect.
explore a lot of new stuff and figure out what works well for me moving forward. In fact, I have a buddy. He's Norwegian. He's about my age. He was a competitive telemark skier years ago, and I was telling him about this. Oh yeah, we're gonna be at the beach. I'm gonna learn to paddle, and he's like, how did he put it? He's something along the lines of, yeah, it'll be great to get into a sport where you're getting better every time you go out as opposed to getting worse, you know?
That's
So
good.
I really appreciated that perspective.
That's right.
And,
Yeah. That's
yeah,
funny. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, living down there too. I've been spending some time down there as well. Not in Waka, but in Loreto, and it's just so relaxed, the pace of life, and I
Oh,
love the food, which also helps. And there's all kinds of outdoor stuff to do. I mean, fishing
yeah,
to all the things you're talking about. Plenty of stuff. Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah, where we are, we're lucky. Where we are is surrounded by national park. So
Mm.
we're going to be in a very kind of outdoorsy spot and, a lot of access, not a ton of people so far anyway. Just the wildlife down there in general is amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen whales, we've seen dolphins, sea turtles, the birds. I haven't gotten into birding yet, but that might change because there's
Oh, it
just
will. Yeah.
wide variety of birds down there too. So,
Yeah.
who knows where this is all going to lead, but I think ultimately it's the adventure of it,
I was gonna say, what a great adventure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And that was one of the things that kind of drew me to being in the outdoors industry is just the
Hmm.
adventure of it,
Yep.
going to new
Yep.
places, trying new stuff, going a little bit further afield and experiencing things that are different that maybe aren't right out your back door.
Yeah. And
So
things you like, you do more of, and things you don't like, you don't do more of. You move on to the next thing because there's so many
exactly.
things. Yeah. That's awesome.
You don't know unless you go.
That's it. That's it. So, in all these adventures, what's one piece of gear or gadget you never leave home without?
You know what's funny? I've had this conversation before. I know guys, people in general, I guess, kind of geek out, maybe guys more often, but geek out on specific products and, oh, this bike is the best or these skis are awesome.
Right.
I tend to find my favorite piece of gear is the one that I'm using. Like I went for a mountain
Mm.
bike ride yesterday. My favorite piece of outdoor gear right now is my mountain bike.
Yep. Hmm. That's a
Three
good
weeks
point.
ago was my gravel bike.
Hmm.
2 winters ago was the skis that I had on. It's less about the product itself and more about the experience that I'm having with that product that really kind of makes it my favorite. I guess, to maybe answer your question more directly, a good helmet is probably the
That's
best
good.
thing.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
if it fits and it's comfortable, obviously you need that protection.
That's a
So,
good one.
I think that might be top of my list.
Yeah, no, that's well said, though. I think you're right because we all, being fortunate enough to work and play in the outdoors, there's so many different activities that we all get into, that it's like it's whatever's my favorite activity. It's the one I'm doing right now, so that's good. Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you, Scott. I appreciate the time. I look forward to some photos when you get down there and send
Absolutely.
us some pics. We'll share them on our feeds with the folks and make sure don't hang up when we sign off. But
All
yeah,
right.
good talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you and hearing the stories you're going to experience down there.
Well, thanks, Rick. I really appreciate you inviting me onto the podcast. Always enjoy talking to you about all this stuff, and I'll most definitely send some photos. And if you're down in Laredo, let me know. Maybe we can get together in Mexico and
Yeah,
yeah, do something down there.
have a beer and go chase some fish.
Sounds great.
Right on. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, ricksays.com, where you'll find show notes and links to everything we talked about and more. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, give us a rating on Apple Podcast or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week, and thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Adventure Lifestyle Podcast.